All right, Sean, it is so great to be with you today. So excited to dive into your story, the Sharpened Iron Studio story, all the things, get into the Texas Film Incentive and how you wildly championed for this amazing program. And this is going to be a precursor, but I think we both agree that I have an invitation to
Yes.
Amarillo and we'll get to see each other in person. So a little bit of this will be virtual and a little bit of this will eventually be in person. Bring my
Good.
get my cowgirl boots on.
There you go.
Awesome. All right, Sean. So I want to just get right into it and I want to hear the story behind Sharpen Iron Studios. How did the company start? I know it's probably a long time coming. I want to go into your background as well, but how did all this come together? What inspired all this to come to be?
So it was a God thing, and that gets used a lot and sometimes overused. But my wife and I decided we were going to move to Amarillo in 2019. She was originally born and raised here, but we met in Sacramento, California in 93, was married back here in Amarillo in 94. But we moved to Amarillo August of 2019, and we had a very successful lobbying business. We had offices in Sacramento, DC, and we were in the process of opening a London office because we had two international clients. And my wife was managing partner of the firm, and once a quarter she'd go back to DC with me. I went every month. In October 19, we were back there. Two of our four boys, we have seven children altogether, but two of the four boys had moved here with us. In the week that we were back in DC, they decided to throw not one, but two keggers here at the house, brand new neighborhood. So my wife, Than, had to fly back to Amarillo to deal with Knucklehead 1 and 2. We were supposed to fly from DC to LA, ironically, to meet with Allison Eastwood, Clint's daughter, because she wanted to hire us for a project she was building. So my wife flew here to Amarillo. I got on the plane nonstop to LA, and I don't really sleep well on flights. Um, it's kind of that hazy, half in, half out. But I really was needing to sleep. So I put my earbuds in and was turned on the instrumental soundtrack to Yellowstone, which is a great soundtrack if you want to go to war. It's not a good soundtrack if you want to get some sleep.
To relax.
Yes, exactly. So I turned on Casting Crowns playlist, and halfway through the flight, and we had to have been over Texas. The song "What If I Gave Everything" came on, and the first part of that song goes, "All my life I long to be a hero, sword raised high, running to the battle. I was going to take giants down, be a man you'd write about. Deep in my chest beats the heart of a warrior. So why am I still standing here?" And I woke from that hazy half in, half out sleep so abruptly that the flight attendant was walking by, literally jumped. And she's like, "Sir, are you okay?" And I went, "Yes, ma'am, I've never been better." And I took out a pen and a portfolio, not my laptop, and just fiercely started writing for the next 2.5 hours. Wasn't sure what I was writing. I was just writing. Landed in LAX, got to the hotel. I'm like, okay, what in the world was that? And I opened it up, and in the 10 pages I had written was the mission, vision, and business plan for Sharp and Iron Studios, which is a Christian film studio. God literally went, "You're going to go do this now. You're going to go back in an industry you swore you'd never go back into," because I was in acting for a while, leave a 38-year, highly successful political career, and you're going to go make Christian films in Amarillo, Texas. And that's how and the name came about a month later. Sharp Iron Studios comes from Proverbs 27 or 17, as iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpens another. And that's how SIS came about.
Hand went to pen, and the rest was all written.
Exactly. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
amazing. Amazing. So, I mean, it came to you, but obviously, you were equipped with actually all of this background, right? Even though you swore you weren't going to come back, you had so much experience. And on the lobbying side, so many
Yeah.
different voices, stakeholders, I'm sure that kind of shaped and gave you an advantage kind of coming in. It's no easy feat to just, start a studio, obviously. But you had built so many relationships and had done business with so many different types of people. So in forming that mission and identity, what does that look like today? Can you describe how that's all kind of come together now that we're 7 years since inception?
Gosh, has it been seven?
Yeah,
Almost seven. Yeah, 20,
almost
20.
seven. Yeah.
Um, it's been there. It's been a roller coaster. There have been some really good parts, and there have been some lessons that I've learned. Um, one thing that we learned is yes, content is king, distribution's the emperor. Um, and we got into a bad distribution deal with our first film, What Remains, and we learned a lot from that. We learned a lot about infrastructure and crew, and um, you know, I went into this with the idea of going back to the old studio system. We kind of model SIS after the glory days of MGM when Louis B. Mayer was still there. And Mayer looked at the studio and everyone that was involved as a family. But they had their list of actors that were MGM actors, directors, producers, editors, grip, gap, et cetera, et cetera. And so I want SIS to be that, and that better. Some of the bad parts of the studio system not having that. So we've been working on building that, and building that relationship or those relationships, and deciding, okay, how is that going to impact SIS, and what are we going to look like? We built a soundstage, 3,100 square foot soundstage, state of the art editing suite. Uh, we've been involved in over 128 projects that have come here that have utilized our services or our studio, whether it's to get crew, equipment, film at SIS. So we're excited about where the future is going to go. Crew is still a major concern in Amarillo. Um, but I think we're just going to continue to grow, learn from our mistakes, grow from our successes, and just onward and upward.
Yeah, like spoken from like a true entrepreneur. There might be, there are challenges right along the way.
Yeah.
And thanks for being vulnerable and sharing that because it's not industry immune, right?
No, absolutely. I have been
Sometimes we're saying there's a million blessings, and sometimes we're saying there's a million lessons. It just depends on the day.
exactly right. And I did come into it with some advantages, having been in the entertainment industry after not long after we first moved from Memphis, Tennessee to Southern California. My sister is the recently, I guess 2 years past now, Shannon Doherty. Shannon was very supportive of the studio. She thought it was crazy, but she was very supportive. And a lot of her contacts or my contacts, and that's been very helpful. In the lobbying side, the political side was absolutely key.
You did say something about being from Tennessee when we first met. What was that great line when Texas folks
Because
challenge you?
they like to they like to think they're Southern.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It was a joke that I made a couple times with my Texas wife, and only once with my Texas mother-in-law. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Texas likes to call themselves Southern, and those of us from the true South allow them that convenience because they were on the right side of the war of Northern aggression. So I'm not sure how politically correct that is, um,
That's okay.
but
I just had to hear it again at least.
it
So
made
sharpened.
me.
So going back to the right side. So Sharpened Iron Studios. It's a Christian production
Yes,
studio.
yes.
So just wanted to hear from you what does that look like? Are there other genres that you specialize in? That's a phenomenal amount of projects, albeit if they're just,
Oh yeah.
renting even for some of the smaller projects, 120 in just a number of years. So is there a typical genre or format or kind of creative discipline that's kind of more standard at Sharp and Ironed? Would love to hear about that.
Well, so our mission is, I tell folks, I tell fellow believers, we want you to buy tickets, we want you to rent our movies, but that's not who we're making our productions for. We're making our productions for the seekers, for the lost, those who aren't believers. And we firmly believe that you don't reach those people by hitting them over the head with the King James version of the Bible. Our goal is to subtly get the gospel out, but set the table for some questions, and that our viewers start to think about and ask those questions, and then we get out of the way and we let God answer them because He can do a far better job of answering those questions than we can. In terms of genre, it's easier to say what we won't do. We won't do adult, obviously, and I won't do horror um, because I have several friends in the industry that think that Christian horror is something that can exist, and maybe it can. But my personal belief in order to do horror, you have to open your studio up, your cast, your crew to darkness and dare say evil, and then you're spreading that to your audience. And that's just not, even if it ends well, right? That's not who we are. So we won't do that. But we're looking at a kind of a sci-fi retelling of the Book of Esther. We've got it's a passion project of mine, a movie that takes place, it'd be an epic, takes place in 1608 Northern Ireland. We're working right now on a vertical series that uses the Bible studies. What Remains was a modern drama. What we're looking for is the best story that can get the message of the gospel out in a way that people are going to A, watch it, and B, listen to the message and obviously ask those questions.
Was going to ask, how do you approach how how's your process and your creative process unique to storytelling? I think you just answered that.
Yeah,
So essentially, yeah, you're going back to kind of the heart of the story and then building around that,
absolutely.
obviously, with guardrails to your core belief system.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
And you mentioned a few. Is there one in particular that you're particularly proud of, or one that you're really excited about that's in the
Well,
works?
so I'll answer both. One that I'm particularly proud of is a documentary called "We're Here," as in we are here. It's won multiple film festivals. It's a documentary we helped produce, did all the posts on. That's about the largest panhandle fire in the history of Texas that happened about 2 years ago. I think it's 900,000 acres were wiped out, thousands of cattle, hundreds of ranches. And we were approached by Lee Well, who was the director and the lead producer, to join him on the project. And we have a 39 second, no, 39-minute version, and then we have a full length hour and 10-minute version. And it tells an amazing story of tragedy, but also the community coming together. People from as far away as Houston were driving, trucks and trailer filled with hay, buying ranchers' bulls so that they could regenerate their herds. So it's also an amazing redemptive story of people coming together to support one another. And as the title goes, we're here. We're here. We're not going anywhere. And we're gonna lift each other up. As far as something I'm really excited about, it's a movie that the working title is The Last Chieftain. It's it's a personal passion story because it's about the last true chieftain of the Doherty clan in Northern Ireland, Sir Cahir. Yeah, it's Sir Cahir, spelled Cahir O'Doherty. He was the last Irish chieftain to rebel against the English occupation and tyranny of Ireland, but specifically Northern Ireland. And Sir Care, I just pronounce Care because it's easier to not sound like I'm hacking up a hairball.
Yeah.
Um, Sir
Any
Care,
relation as well? The
oh yeah,
Doherty?
yeah,
Yeah,
we
it's
believe I'm a
your
direct,
great.
I'm a direct descendant.
Very cool.
Which is what's interesting about that is if that bears out and it's the truth, I can challenge for the chieftain of the clan, and I fully plan on doing it. Yeah,
Oh,
it's pretty cool.
we're gonna have to have
Yeah,
a whole follow up on that.
yeah, but he Care did everything he could to avoid war. diplomacy, compromise, political maneuvering. But he just reached a point that in order to protect his faith, his family, and his kingdom, he realized there's a peace that can only be achieved on the other side of war. And in May 8th, 1608, he rebelled, um, sacked the town of Derry, put the evil governor to the sword. James I was the king of England at the time. He sent two armies to try to take care of the clan out. Both ventures failed. The third battle. This was a time where rudimentary muskets and cannon were just starting to make their presence on the battlefield. Um, but a lucky musket ball hit him in the temple, and before his body hit the ground, falling off the horse, he was dead. Uh, there was a battle for his body, which ultimately the clan lost, and the British recovered his body, and they did to it what they do. But that ended the rebellion. The interesting thing is it changed Northern Ireland history and really Irish history forever, because that rebellion really directly led to the troubles of Northern Ireland during the Thatcher administration, the IRA and Finn.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a story that Film Ireland, the Film Commission Ireland, really wants to be told. So really excited about that. It's probably a few years down the road in getting done. I'd guesstimate is going to be between, Napoleon was 105 million. I think this one's going to be in that neighborhood, maybe a little bit more. It's a big project.
It's a big project, which
Yeah.
really kind of leads me to wanted to shift gears on just the intricacies and the difficulties of production strategy and
Mm.
being leader in this space. You had mentioned, crews are smaller in Amarillo. That's been, an inherent challenge,
Yeah.
albeit those that do show up, they show up
Yeah.
big. I think to your earlier point with the We Are Here, what really resonated with me, and it's something I've also noticed being an outsider, another California transplant, here 10 years, enough to get their boots dirty,
Yep.
um, is that Texas has a heartbeat.
Yes.
It's a loud heartbeat, and Texans show up for Texans. So I didn't even know about that how big of a tragedy that was in the Panhandle. I mean, the most recent, tragedy I remember, what we're coming up on it was the flood tragedies at Camp Mystics, but that was one of those things too, where when a mother cries, we all
Yeah.
cry. But I think there's also true beauty in the worst of times, how much we see our neighbors um, roll up their sleeves to offer any type of support they possibly can. And it's very unique.
Absolutely. And, with Camp Mystic, if you drive around my neighborhood, you'll see green ribbons around multiple trees. It's because those are houses where the families, hmm, sorry, where the families knew that little girl.
Yeah.
And there were other families that are here in Amarillo that were impacted. So, yeah, I mean, Texans step up, and we're a big family, and we support each other and do what we can to help carry each other through difficult times and celebrate the victory.
And celebrate their lives as
Yeah,
well.
100%.
Didn't expect to get Misty, but it's important. It's important, and their legacy lives on.
Yes. Us Irish, we tend to be emotional.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I did my 23andMe, and I actually ended up being a lot more Irish than I expected. So maybe it's full
There you
circle.
go.
It's meant to meet more
There you
Irish.
go. We'll tip you
Uh,
off to Ulster and put you in the film.
yeah, there we go. There we go. So let's segue into production challenges that have now honestly become opportunities as well. How have you overcome some of those by nature of less personnel or crews, or maybe even how does your team how have they learned to work with less and manage some of these larger scale productions because you've had quite a few.
So we've got a great core team. We really do, and they're very talented and they're incredibly hardworking. They understand where we sit with crew, and that if we can't step up and do the job of two or three,
Mhm.
then we're going to start to lose production. We have been negotiating with a movie called Shell Game. It's Theo Rossi's director debut. Andy Garcia is attached as the lead. Their biggest issue is crew. Their budget is they're having to put 2.5 million into their budget to travel crew here to Anguilla. So my team just really steps up and does a great job. We've invested heavily in equipment. We have a pretty significant G&E room, grip and electric room. We can put out a 1, 3, and a 5-ton package. I know because we've done it simultaneously 3 times. But we've most of our lighting is HDI and tungsten, but we have started to shift into LEDs, and that there's a cost saving. They're more expensive, but cost saving in that you don't have to have a grip going up and down a ladder replacing gels. You literally can change it with your phone or your iPad and just clicking on whatever color you want or going into the program in making the changes to the colors. So that reduces your grip need probably by about a third, and it reduces your time. At the end of the day, any production, whether it's a music video, What Remains, Yellowstone, you just have to have there's just crew you have to have. And we certainly, as a family, want to make sure that we're supporting our crew and giving them jobs. If you don't have them, you don't have them. The local community college here really dropped the ball on creating a film training program. Uh, and that was one of the goals originally in our partnership with them was to create a film school, and they just didn't do it. They tried for a semester, but they didn't put the money and the time into it. But just suppose you look at Tarrant County Community College, they partnered with Taylor Sheridan, and they're pumping out 100, 200 trained crew every cohort in just a certificate program. So you adjust, you
Yeah.
adjust.
Well, and you've made connections from what I've heard
Yes.
and some of our conversations with some of these big universities.
Yep.
You might not be in Amarillo, but I know the folks at A&M and UT, and
Yeah.
which
Absolutely.
which helps. I'm
Right.
sure, and also allows you to say, okay, if not here, or you need resources there, you can also be a steward of those relationships.
100%. And the other thing that I will tell producers is, I mean, first, Texas is the best state in the union in order to do business in cost of living. Amarillo is probably the best city in Texas for cost of living and to do business in. I mean, we've been listed in the top 10 or top 5 in Forbes consistently for the last couple of years. Well, if you can cut 25, 20, 25, 30% on particular items out of your budget because it's just
Yeah.
cheaper here,
It's,
whether it's
yeah.
hotels, restaurants, Airbnbs, dry cleaners, lumber, what have you, those are costs that are going directly to your budget. One of the things I
Yeah.
discussed with producer Shell Game. Look, their location budget was $600,000. Not a single person, including West Texas A&M University, was going to charge them a thing to use their home, their business, their university for location.
Huge.
It's a $600,000 savings. It's huge.
Huge.
You
Yeah.
can
And they plug into your studios. It's already locked and loaded. They don't need AI tools. They just come there.
yeah, absolutely.
Everyone's talking about edges there. Well,
Right.
you got
So
25 or 30% just going to
right.
Amarillo. That's amazing.
So and I'm sure we're going to talk about the incentives later, but there are specific uplifts that you get by filming at SIS. So, those cost savings help take out the money that's going to be spent to travel. But at the end of the day, we've got to develop a crew base here. Once we do that, kitty bar the door. I mean,
Yep.
this becomes the next Albuquerque easily.
Yep. Yep. So let's go. Let's actually jump into there. I
Yeah.
normally would ask, how did you learn about it? But I just happen to know you were foundational in the TM. We need a rebrand on the
We
acronym
really
though.
do. TMS.
TMIIIP. I've actually just been saying TXF because it's faster, Texas Film.
I love that. Yeah. I like that.
But for the audience that doesn't know this, the Texas Moving Image Industry Incentive Program,
Yeah. Yeah.
how did it come to be? How did you start getting involved? And then would love to jump into uh, these uplifts, right?
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
coming
Absolutely.
to Amarillo.
So, having the experience in the entertainment industry, I did, and then my political background, particularly in lobbying, when I was given that charge to build Sharpen Iron Studios, one of the first things I did, and I knew about Atlanta, and and everyone was going there because of the tax credit, which is
Yep.
significantly different than the rebate. The first thing I did was look into what states have rebates, who's the best, where people go, why are they going to Atlanta? And I looked at our rebates or tax credits, and I looked at our rebate and realized, okay, it's not going to cut it.
Yeah.
22.5% max. We were hamstrung to the budget every biennial because Texas meets once every 2 years for 6 months. And that money had to keep being reallocated. And the most it had ever been was in 2013 when Governor Perry put in 145 million. So we were sitting at 45 million, which is nothing.
Yeah, it goes so
And
fast.
yeah, so I knew we had to get involved. And so right out of the gate, that's what we did. I mean, we jumped in. Our local representative at the time, Full Price, I was a good friend of mine and of my wife's family. Great guy. I asked him about lobbyists, and he made a recommendation. And all my friends in politics thought, why are you hiring a lobbyist? I mean, you just got this major thing passed in the 2018 Farm Bill. Why are you hiring lobbyists? I'm like, well, because I don't know the members. Right? I don't know the legislature. So that's how we got into it. And, it took 5 years. But this last session, we were able to get it really just a complete revamp. It had
Yeah.
tremendous support. The lieutenant governor was behind it. The governor was behind it. Obviously, Matthew McConaughey, Dennis Quaid, Woody Harrelson, Amy Bailey from The Chosen. Um, they were all behind it. But I just knew we had to make those changes. We were going to be.
Absolutely. I do think it is worth getting into the quick mechanics of how it stands up because you had mentioned, right, a credit and rebate. And I don't want to make any assumptions here because folks do, they see, Georgia at the end of, a production clip. And so I think it's important that we do clarify that, right? Georgia, albeit historically the kind of one of the strongest states in the nation, it is a tax credit, which by all
Right.
means, most people, we love tax credits, right? Dollar for dollar against income taxes. But the way that these films are often structured, right, are individual as LLCs. So much like real estate, they can be spun up and then wound down, meaning they can generate credits and not actually have use for them, right? So
Right.
that was a big distinguishing factor for Texas Film. Was
Yeah.
that originally, did it originally look like a credit in Texas, or was it always going to try to be structured as a rebate? So for the audience, a rebate means quite literally cash back, right? A
Yep.
check. It's
Yep.
not against income to any income taxes, which that's wildly powerful, even
Yeah.
if the bucket is perhaps even smaller
Right.
on a year by year basis.
I met with several SVPs and EVPs in the industry from HBO, Showtime, Lionsgate, MGM, Amazon, and asked them in to a person, they all said the exact same thing. The bean counters like the tax credit because they just
Mhm.
see the number, 30%.
Yeah.
But when you actually are boots on the ground and you're a producer actually having to work out the budget, it doesn't ever pencil out that way. Because to your point, these movies come in as individual LLCs. Okay, you've got a $10 million movie that is filming in Atlanta. They get a 30% tax credit. Okay, so the bean counters, the accountants think, there's $3 million off the budget. Well, the problem with that is first, it's a 2 to 3 year process. First thing, because you go through multiple audits, and then let's say your audit is successful, you get this piece of paper saying you have a tax credit valued at $3 million. Well, your LLC has long since left the state. So what do you do with that? Well, you sell it, right? Well, you don't know who to sell it to. So you hire a broker. And these brokers have created cottage industries in all of the states that have tax credits. And these brokers charge anywhere. I was told, by one gentleman from HBO, they were going to charge 18% commission on whatever they sold the credit for.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's not 100% usually either, right? It's kind of what's the
If
going
you,
rate.
if
Like you're
you,
lucky if you get 90 cents on the dollar.
oh, no, 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 no. You're lucky if you get 60 because
Okay, so there you
what
go. And then it's beat down by another 18.
correct. Because invariably what
Yeah.
happens, particularly in Atlanta, is the market is so saturated that because you've got to sell this to an Atlanta or Georgia based company in order to use it. Well,
Mhm.
there's so many of these credits running around, these companies, it's a buyer's market, right?
Right.
So
Yeah. It's an
I'll give you
oversupply.
exactly. So okay,
Yep.
you've got a $3 million tax credit, I'll give you $1.2 million for it. And then you lose the 18%. As opposed to a rebate, you particularly here, and we've got an amazing film commission here. Stephanie Whalen and her team do a phenomenal job. You got that $10 million movie, you submit the budget, they get a grant letter saying, okay, you're going to qualify, if you meet these numbers for $3 million. You finish, you do one audit, 6 months later, you get a check from the Texas Comptroller's Office for $3 million. 6 months. It's amazing. So when I hear people say, oh, well, Georgia, New York, New Jersey, Illinois, New Mexico, I'm like, you're not digging into the numbers. There's a
And it's
conversation.
not just for the big guys,
It's
right?
not for the
So
big guys,
it's
right?
not just for the big guys. I think that's also very unique. I mean, I bet it's hard to say what's the biggest opportunity or impact, but would love to hear from you in your view, you know, and perhaps it is maybe because it's not just for the big guys. But in your opinion, we're at the very beginning of this program, right? They're just going to start to be allocating. September was kind of the start time for taking applications. In your view right now, as we stand, and maybe it's might change over time, but what do you think the biggest opportunity is for this program for production companies looking at Texas or that are already here?
That's a great question. Um, Obviously, the speed, the ease, and the clarity of the rebate. You know what you're going to. Um, again, so long as you hit the numbers, your point. Um, so I think that's probably the biggest advantage is you're not having to sell a piece of paper, you're not having to wait 2 3 years to get the money back. If you're a big legacy studio, 2 3 years is no big deal. It's just an allocation on a spreadsheet. But if you're an independent or even a smaller studio or smaller production company, that can make the difference between profitability and non-profitability, recruitment or
Sure.
not. And
Mhm.
you know, getting that back quickly is a huge advantage.
Mhm. One thing that we're seeing for some of the smaller studios that we've been chatting with, or filmmakers, right, is a lot of people don't realize like filmmakers, they're fundraising, right? They have investors, and so I think that this de-risks some of the fundraising efforts as well from the investor's standpoint.
So,
Perhaps they'll be able to, also cut a check sooner, knowing that from, completion review in that 6 months period, they're not waiting on
right,
that return,
right.
or they
Yeah,
can even negotiate part of that into that investment.
yeah, 100%. I mean, we're working on a project now. It's going to be roughly $1 million. We anticipate our rebate is going to be between 210 to 230,000 based on the uplifts. Well, I can go to my initial investors and secure their investment because we're selling units, secure their investment against the rebate. So when the
Wow,
rebate comes, you'll pay your investment back, and now it's just pure profit from there. Um,
huge,
it's huge, huge.
huge.
We didn't have this program when we did What Remains back in 2021, and the producing team there did were late to the gun, getting it filed, but that would have made a tremendous difference. Uh, Having that ability, particularly whether you're doing a small production or a small studio, small production company, that that certainty is tremendous.
Yeah,
And it's a,
absolutely. And it can see, you know, it can see the next picture, the next episodic, the next project,
yeah,
or even maybe perhaps increase the budget where they might have had to cut
yep,
maybe some corners or weren't able to get everything they wanted, knowing that that's coming back is
absolutely.
massive.
Yeah,
For I mean, you know, you and I are like, this is a no-brainer, but
yeah.
you know these studios more than I do. What for these studios that are hesitant or unsure about the program, what would you say to them why they should be considering it? They just
Well,
got to see it to believe it.
I mean, the first is get outside of your box. Stop thinking about what has been for the last 2 decades, and really dig into what our program does and the opportunities it presents. Dig into the uplifts. Be creative about where you shoot, who you shoot with, and recognize the value of a rebate, the speed and the clarity and the certainty of the other thing in particular with Texas, filming in Texas, is th- there's not a location you want or need that we don't have. You want a desert? We got it. You want forest? We got it. You want coastal? We got it. You want plains? We've got it. You want big cities? We've got it. You want small towns? We've got it. I mean, it's all
Yeah,
here in a state that is so business friendly that you're going to save money. And that, again, going back to my prior comment, think about budget saving, okay? Because Atlanta is so impacted, and nothing against Atlanta, but they're so impacted. Cost of living is so high. Cost of goods and services are high. New York, New Jersey, forget about it, right? Here,
I get
you're
it.
going to forget about it. Here, you're going to save money. An $18 million movie may actually only cost you 15. And then you've got the rebate on top of that.
Yeah,
So, you know, we've got so many advantages, and the rebate is kind of leading the way. It's the tip of the spear.
yeah.
So to
So let's talk about this base rate and
yeah,
these uplifts,
yeah,
because they see percentage, you see percentages right away, but
yeah.
to get down to what it is, and I'd love to, uplifts were part of the lobbying,
Yeah.
and believe the SIS is the only studio that automatically qualifies for all, at least
Uh,
for now.
yes. We're
So
the
let's talk about that.
yeah. So, um, couple of uplifts that we particularly lobbied for. One was a faith-based uplift. If you have a faith-based film, you get an additional 2.5%. We're the only strictly faith-based film studio in Texas. That doesn't mean others can't do them, but
Sure.
that's specifically our business model. The other was we wanted to make sure that there was some type of component similar to the underutilized and underdeveloped uh, part of Texas, and that's how the 300,000 population. So if you film in a county with a population of under 300,000, you get an additional 2.5% uplift. But we're the only studio that sits in one of
That
those
has
counties. Yeah,
it.
I mean everybody else is around Austin or Dallas, and those counties are significantly more than 300,000. The veterans uplift was something that we really thought was important. That's everybody. Everybody can get that. We do have a heavy veterans population in the Panhandle, and I think 90% of my crew that I use regularly have served, which is amazing. And so those, and then the other one is heritage and values of Texas, which is kind of nebulous. Um, but frankly, I figured, if we're faith based, pretty much everything we do is going to fit in that heritage and value of Texas.
Yeah.
So it's just, we're able, like, the project we're working on, it's $1 million. So we'll start at a base of 10%. But then when you add the faith base, you add the population, you add the heritage, you add the veterans. I mean, now we're pushing 21, 23.5%. Yeah. Which, for $1 million production, talking almost a quarter of your
It's
budget.
all
Works all day long. Absolutely. So we were thrilled that we were able to get some. And a lot of members in the House and the Senate were very supportive of. We had some real champions. I can't say enough about our state senator, Kevin Sparks, who was an absolute champion for us. And then Senator Charles Perry, who's right down in Lubbock, again, another champion for us. Several members, our Caroline Fairley, our House rep, again, John Smithy, our House rep, were just tremendous warriors for not only just for SIS, but for the program as a whole, because they recognize the value that would bring to the state.
Support from all sides. I mean, that's
Yeah,
huge. It's not something you
yeah,
see every day, especially in politics, right? Bipartisan
absolutely.
is like not always as trendy.
Yeah,
So that's a
so
great thing.
my biggest
I
frustration,
think, oh, go
I-
ahead.
my biggest frustration with the legislature were some of our more conservative members fought against the plan, and I'm
No.
like you guys, you really not get it? You not understand the economics of this? And I can't tell you how many times I heard "Don't Hollywood my Texas." I'm like, you guys just do not understand what these things do.
Well, I think we're going to Texas, Hollywood.
A
Is the
hundred
answer.
percent, 100%.
That'll
Yep.
have to be one of our headlines. Watch
Yes,
us.
absolutely.
We're gonna
Yeah,
Texas your Hollywood.
exactly. And the lieutenant governor, Dan Patrick, understood that. He understood that. He understood that we had an opportunity to infiltrate Hollywood with
Yes.
our values.
Yes.
And much to his credit, and he obviously was a huge champion for the program.
Well, I think that's one of the good things about the content review too, right? But that's sort of one of the big question marks for filmmakers. Like, what if it doesn't pass? Well, like, the kind of counterintuitive, but like, to keep Texas in a good spotlight is just to not talk bad
Well,
about Texas. So
it
that should be pretty easy.
should be pretty easy, and you should know that if you want to do a remake of Mongolian Deathworm, you're not going to get a rebate,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And that's an actual movie. Um,
Oh my gosh.
yeah,
Definitely.
so it really it's not rocket science. And again, Stephanie and her team, they'll talk to you. I mean, they will sit there and say, yes, we think this has a good chance of getting a grant, or this really isn't, you know, what we're looking for.
That's a huge advantage. That accessibility and the
Absolutely.
education. I mean,
Yep.
that's another testament to the program, the leaders within it, and that it just demonstrates, in my opinion, too, that they want to see this through.
Absolutely.
It's not a black box,
Correct.
which is awesome. Well, I would love to shift to a couple of more personal questions and then some rapid fire.
Okay.
It's very clear that you're building something very special, something with legacy.
Yes.
And you've talked a lot about the importance, and it obviously shows through what you've built of building an ecosystem and building a true community and supporting the community around the work
Yes.
and the pictures that you create. What advice would you give to other rising production leaders who want to build something special and successful like Sharpened Iron?
Your team is everything. We've had some good people that weren't good members of the team. We've had some people that we thought would be good members of the team and good people, but that weren't good people. Discernment in who you bring around you and who you make part of your team is absolutely critical. They need to have the same vision, the same purpose, at least your core group, same vision and the same purpose. Otherwise, you're going to trip over yourself and you're going to have problems. And when you inevitably have to let these people go, now you've got bad feelings and things like that. We grew a little bit too large too quick in the first couple of years, and I would say my fault. I wasn't as discerning as I needed to be. I was kind of learning this whole thing of building a studio. I tell people I was a politician, not a filmmaker. Um, that's the most critical thing. Your team is everything. And then, slow down. You don't have to do it all right now. There are lessons that to be learned. There are things that need to be studied. Um, does the market fit? Does the location fit? What is your mission and your vision? How does all of that fit within it? And be willing to sit back and and wait for the answers.
Yeah. That discernment and discipline is
Absolutely.
crucial. Easier said than done, right? But
Yep.
think
Oh, yeah.
big, act small.
Yep.
It's hard. It's hard,
Yeah.
especially if I imagine, especially in your space where there's so much opportunity, so much creativity,
Yes.
um, and so many people wanting to make incredible pictures with you. So, around vision, what's your vision in the coming years for Sharpen Studios? What's it going to look? What will it look like, or what's your goal for it to look like
So
in
our
the next
ultimate
few years, or
goal,
beyond, even beyond you?
so my our ultimate goal is to build a studio city. We have acreage, a little over 500 acres that we're looking at. And if you say an ecosystem, that's exactly what we want to build. So if you take Trilla Studios in Fayetteville, Georgia, we just want to duplicate what they did. So there'll be a studio component that will have between 7 and 12 sound stages, corporate offices, hair, makeup, wardrobe, props, commissary, all of that. But then the rest of, and that'll be about 75, two back lots, a first entry back lot and a western back lot. It's about 75 acres. The rest, we're going to be build single family, multifamily housing, commercial, retail, restaurant, and a hotel. And really, our ultimate goal is to reach out to the other Christian filmmakers, whether it's the Kendrick brothers, the Irwin brothers, Tony Affirm, what have you, those filmmakers that are up and coming that don't have the money and the resources that it takes to really take their brilliant creative ideas and see them to fruition. Well, we'll have the cameras, we'll have the equipment, we'll have the studio space, we'll have office space, we'll have rental space, but make SIS, Canyon, Amarillo be the hub for Christian filmmaking in the United States. Beyond that, we have a vision for SIS Dublin, SIS Nigeria, SIS Seoul. So 4 of these hubs across the globe. Yeah.
All right, let's rapid fire.
Okay.
All right.
I'll do my
Favorite
best.
part? Okay, favorite part about working in production
Oh my gosh.
today.
Favorite part of working in production today is just seeing the creatives create. Just watching that whole process unfold, whether it's the taking an idea, turn into treatment and a script, or even being on set. And I try not to be on set a lot because I don't want to bother people, but just watching that creative process.
Awesome. What's a myth about independent studios you wish you would go away?
That they can't make money. They absolutely can.
Awesome.
That
One thing
percentage
every
wise, they can.
producer should know about incentives.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yep.
Percentage
Yep.
wise, independents can make more money than the larger films, and they do it
That's
faster.
huge.
Yeah,
That's kind of a
absolutely.
mic drop. Best advice you've ever received.
Read the script.
One word that sums up sharpened irons. Let me say that again because I don't want to butcher that sentence. One word that sums up sharpened irons identity.
Redemptive.
Beautiful. Sean, this was such a treat. I hope you
Oh,
had as much fun as I did.
I did. It's over already?
It's over. Well, this is just part one. This
Okay,
is
great.
part one.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got to get my butt up to Amarillo,
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
and I want to walk. I want to walk on some of that acreage and say I was here before the 500.
Done. Done.
Awesome.
It's
All right.
it's a beautiful piece of property. I mean, it really is. It has a creek that flows into it that empties into a large pond.